All right. Yeah. So today we have Kirsten Beske with us. You have the most amazing background. You were an attorney. You've been doing a couple. What is it? Psychotherapist? You said.
Yep.
Is that how you say that? Yeah. So how did you move from an attorney to a psychotherapist? I don't see how those two areas mesh. Tell
So
us about
funny.
that.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I have a long form answer, and part of it's probably what we'll talk about some more here. But if you think about it, we call it our attorneys counselors, right? That's one of their names. And I did go into a lot to actually help people. And when I switched to psychotherapy, I had the same goal of helping people. And I had a coach, a hockey coach, because I played adult women's hockey, and his
Right.
nickname for me was counselor. And so when I told him I was changing fields and I wouldn't be practicing law anymore, I was going into, get my master's in psychology and become a therapist. He said, "Well, what am I going to call you?" And I said, "Counselor." It's the same name. It's still counseling people, just in a different way. So
Yeah.
all the curiosity and being able to get facts and use your brain to synthesize what you're hearing and then help people based on that they do overlap there. But it is a rather strange change, but one I've never regretted, because it really is more of a calling for me. And when I started coaching about 4 years ago, it was just an extension of that kind of idea that I'm here, I have some skills, and I'd love to use them to help pull people forward in their lives and be their best self. So it's
I love that. Yeah.
all comes
And
from the
now that
same
you
impulse.
Yeah, exactly. And now that you said that, it's funny because I used to be a paralegal and, I'm a certified Aroma freedom practitioner. So very similar. And I thought, yeah, so when I was a paralegal, I concentrated on real estate, but we did, you had to console the people through the process and, like they'd be all nervous. I'm like, oh, it's just the same old forms over and over again. No worries. But when you're buying a house, I mean, that's a life moment, right? One of those big changes. It's like, wow, I have a mortgage, I'm a house owner, and the legalities and making sure, their property lines and all of that.
Right.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And, I should know that 'cause as an energetic mindset mentor, words mean so much. And you think of all the like one word, and there's all these different ways to say that one word. So attorney, lawyer, counselor. So yeah, I totally get that now. Love
Thanks.
it.
Glad it was.
Esquire.
Yeah.
Yeah, Esquire. Like now, where did that Esquire come
That's
from?
something about gentlemen. We don't talk about that anymore. That's just the old school. So
Let's
many,
move on. Yeah.
right?
Yes, I remember those days back in the 80s. So tell us about your journey. So you'd gone through this, this forgiveness part, this healing, this inner child thankfulness. Tell us what you were like before you hit your darkest moment.
Well, so I was practicing law and I was doing all the things as right as I could, right? I'm living my life. I'm checking off the marks. I graduated from Harvard. I graduated from Boston University School of Law. I got a job at a big law firm in Boston. I found the man that I wanted to marry. I moved to Vermont with him, and we decided became partner at the law firm. And so I was like, living the dream. And then we decided that we should start a family, which I don't regret one bit. But my eldest child, I will abbreviate the story, but I was on bed rest for 3 months with
Um,
her. I practiced law out of a lazy boy recliner while I was on bed rest. And the cool thing was she was born fine, cesarean section, no worries. I expected that. And then we went in for our 1 week well baby visit. And at that time, the doctor said, is your child upset? And I'm like, no. And then they come back with the EKG machine and they hook her up and they say, so can you take your child and walk to the emergency room? I will meet you there on campus. And so I go to the emergency room. It was like code red. And apparently her heart was in a tachycardia. It was beating like 300 beats a minute. And she would be going into congestive heart failure. So they're ordering a
um,
helicopter from the Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center to fly down to get her, to bring her up there. And it was this big triage mess. And anyway, in the end, She is fine. She's 21 years old today. And she had to have, it turned out she had a tumor in her heart, and she had to go to Boston and get open heart bypass surgery where they stop your heart and take out the tumor down there. And it turned out fine. She's fully recovered. We didn't have any really restrictions. It was wonderful. So we said to ourselves, what could be worse than having open heart surgery on your infant? Let's try for another child. So we did, and got pregnant again. And I expected I may very well be on bed rest again. And what happened was, my child was going to be born in January. And what happened in September of 2001 was the attack on the World Trade Centers, the 9/11 terrorist attacks.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend, my very first boyfriend, unfortunately passed away in one of the towers. So I was pregnant. I was worried I was going to go in premature labor anyway, but they finally declared him dead because, they didn't know for weeks whether people were really dismissing or dead. And so I wanted to go to his funeral. And instead, I had my second child 3 months early, and he was only 1 pound, 11 ounces, and he was very, very fragile. And he spent 3 months in the NICU, and he had bowel surgery and almost died more than once. And the good news is he's 19 today. He made it through freshman year of college despite the pandemic. All was well that ended well, but it was really hard. And so he came home on oxygen with an ostomy bag that was reversed. I don't know if you know what ostomy bag is, but he had they really thought he was dying. So they did this emergency surgery, and it turned out he lived. And so when he was in for that surgery, and they told us there was very little chance that he was going to come out alive or survive past it, because he was very, very, very little. I mean, he was still in that 1 pound, 11 ounce range.
Yeah. Wow.
That was my darkest moment. And it was really, really hard. And the fact that he survived, I consider a miracle. And the fact that he's not blind or deaf or has cerebral palsy is also a miracle, because at that stage of gestation, we have 40 weeks of pregnancy. He was born at 26 and 5/7 weeks gestation. He didn't get to, bake properly. So the wonderful people at Dartmouth Hitchcock, who I'm super grateful to every day, kept him alive, and it was wonderful. And then he came home, and then we started all of the hard work of keeping him alive ourselves. And so what I did was I got everyone through, the family got through. He became stable. My daughter became stable. I continued to practice law throughout this journey. And at some point I started realizing I was acting out in unhealthy ways. And so the wake up point for me was when I found myself doing things that, like, I was kind of self-medicating in ways. I wasn't drinking too much, but I was definitely drinking. I was definitely going out of my way to find exciting, fun, thrilling things to do. And I was definitely eating for emotional regulation. And I had never experienced such dysregulation before. So I felt like I was kind of falling apart. And I was like, what does one do when one falls apart? And I had never been to a counselor or a psychotherapist or a psychiatrist or all the different names we call the helping profession. I think I had asked to go see one once upon a time when I was a teenager. My parents were like, oh, no, you don't need that. Because I came from the family, that we don't do that kind of thing. You can figure it out. And so I, for the very first time in my life, admitted that maybe I could use a little support. And I went to a therapist who was fabulous. And I discovered, wow, you can actually really help people's lives in this profession. And I might, I've never experienced that before. And then as I took care of my kids and I continued to practice law, I realized this wasn't working for me. I wasn't doing the kind of work I wanted to do. It was too time intensive. I was trying cases all over the state. I'd have to leave the kids. So I went to a coach, a career coach, and worked through, well, what would I like to do it otherwise. And it was only through the working with that coach, I actually could give myself permission after the whole process we went through to realize what I really wanted to do was go into psychiatry. No, not psychiatry, psychology. Psychiatry is those doctors, and I wasn't going to go back to med school. I already had one doctorate in the law. And so I knew I wanted to work with people. And so I gave myself permission to stop practicing law, go back to school, get my master's in psychology, and I've had a private practice for about a decade until I moved now into coaching. I really just used what I learned from being in that really bad place. I asked myself those existential questions because when after 9/11 happened, we're asking ourselves, like, what is this world, right? So I'm bringing a child into this world where we just had this horrible attack that people died, and like, why, like, how do you justify bringing life into the world if you don't have a really firm sense of, like, what's our meaning? What's our purpose? Why are we here? And so the sense that I made for myself was I was here to serve others on this journey as best as I could. And so I've been living that ever since. And as I said, I haven't regretted it yet. I really, I loved the intellectual practice of practicing law, but I love working with people. I get so much gratification of watching people grow into themselves. It's a wonderful thing.
It is. I know when I watch my clients transform and I see them just flourish into what their purpose is and to get that clarity. Because I know when I first meet with my clients, they're all over the place. Well, I want to do this, and I can do it all. I know I can, and it's okay. And it's like, okay, yeah, but you can only focus on one thing at a time. So let's focus, and then we'll add things as this one becomes successful.
Yes.
So that's
those bumpers for people, like in bowling.
Yes.
Like, put up those lane bumpers so we don't end up in the what do they call those side the ruts.
The gutter. So yeah, I call it roadblocks. So like, we're going to remove all the roadblocks, the hazards, the fallen trees that block your view from, or your way as you're driving down the road. You got that big tree that falls and you're like, where do I go? What do I do? And I want to do the book. I want to do that. And it's funny because some coaches, mentors will actually promote like the multiple income streams, but there's a way to do it so that you're not feeling overwhelmed. You're not like, what do they call it? Jack of all trades, master of none.
Right.
That's what sometimes you feel like especially when you're a brand new coach and you're starting off. And people get confused about, like, what's my niche? Like, how am I going to, I don't want to just talk to that one person, because what about all the other people I want to help? I want to help all these people. It's like, you can't. You have your group and this group's going to go over here. So yeah, it's amazing how our thoughts can really change the trajectory of how we perceive things when we just entertain all of that. So your profession is incredible, and how you just kind of keep people focused and balanced. And it's amazing because you went through, to watch your child struggle, totally helpless, knowing that it's like a medical condition, you're totally reliant on the professionals, the medical staff, to care for your child, and then watch your child grow into young adults, and be perfectly fine. That's got to be a beautiful journey in itself. But I can't even imagine the struggles, losing the friend, seeing what was going on with 911, being like, directly impacted by that. And then still having to do your job. Like you were talking about being pregnant and having to do your job in your chair, and being a lawyer is stressful. So I don't care what part of the law you're practicing. It's stressful because, it's like constant, and you got to make sure your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed, and you're not going to get the judge upset.
I owe a lot to my paralegal and my secretary at that time, who kept me in line while I was trying to do it from the chair.
Yeah, that's incredible. So you had said the psychotherapist had helped you. You were actually working with her. So what kind of modality did they implement that really was a pivot point for you and to begin your healing and your processing?
Well, the cool thing is that the therapist I worked with is the kind of person that really lets the client lead, which is kind of the way I do it as well. So and excuse me, I'm gonna cough. So I'm right in the middle, right? So I I had an interest in kind of mindfulness meditation and what I call Buddhist psychology. So as opposed to the religion of Buddhism, there's a really great psychology that's come out of the tradition of Buddhism. And a lot of it involves really working with your mind around what you focus on, what you don't, and letting some natural insights come up. So at the time that I was working with a therapist, we worked on a lot of kind of insight type meditation work. So the modality was really around trying to tap into inner wisdom and bring it forward through quiet times. And I'm an introvert, but you can imagine when you're practicing law and you've got a couple kids, you're not finding your introvert time to be down, and relax. So part of the healing involved carving out enough time to be able to spend a little time in quiet and contemplation and reflection. And I've always been a journaling person ever since I was young. I have journals way back to when I was probably like 10 years old. So writing became a big part of my healing, where I would have some time to contemplate, and then I would also journal because it helped me process all the complicated thoughts I was having. So I always recommend, if anyone is remotely willing to write, to just take that time, carve out that time to be able to process your thoughts yourself. So, sometimes you don't need that counselor, you don't need a therapist. If you're willing to look in and be honest with yourself, you can get a lot of insight on your own. Sometimes you just need the structure and the someone kind of holding you accountable to taking that time.
Yeah, absolutely. I love journaling. I tell my clients all the time, the power of pen and paper is priceless. I mean, I have very specific exercises that we do. And I mean, I write every single day, and it's one thing I will not compromise. Like, no, we have time to do this. We're going to make time. I don't care if I slept in or if we're running late and I didn't do it yet. No, it's 5 minutes. That's all I want. Just leave me alone.
Right. So nice
So, yeah.
centering exercise to do too, and can set the tone for the day.
Yes, absolutely. So what advice would you give to somebody that has experienced or is currently experiencing something similar to what you went through?
Well, I hope nobody has to experience what I went through, but we all have health emergencies and kid problems all the time. And so I think one of the big lessons I learned is it's okay to rely on other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do it all yourself, because I think previously I was super independent and thought that was the way to be. And I've learned now that we're all interdependent, and it's really nice to be able to have some community and let people be generous with you, and then you can be generous in return. So I'd say use your support, seek out that help, use your friends, let your family help you. All the different, anywhere you can get some support, let them come in and let them help you. Don't think you have to do it all by yourself.
Yeah, the first step is to ask for help. Don't be afraid, because you're not alone. And so many of us think that we were alone. We're the only ones that experience that. Or if I tell, they're going to think poorly about me or my family, or to definitely find somebody you trust. So that's excellent advice. So what do you offer? You said you're a coach. So what is your coaching program like?
Yeah, so I'm a mindset strategist. So I like to work with people in transition, much like I changed from practicing law to becoming a therapist, and a few other, a married person to a not married person. We go through these big life transitions, and so I'm a mindset strategist that helps people first get clarity on what they are trying to accomplish, and then help guide them through the process of change. Because in my experience, when you're making big shifts in your life, it's scary, right? It's not as simple as like, oh, I want to do that. The steps you have to take to move from point A to point B end up challenging you in ways that you may not even understand, and often can get us blocked, and just keep us not getting there. And we wake up 5 years later and we still haven't done that thing we wanted to do. So we get clear on what our mission is and our purpose in life. And I use the pillars of positive psychology because I've been certified in applied positive psychology. And there's a kind of these evidence-based studies that have been done about how humans thrive. So we use that as the outline by which we move through the stages of change, making sure we use those as touch points so we can stay in a really a place of thriving. And then I use a lot of my stress reduction skills and techniques to help people tolerate the discomfort of moving into those scary places of change, because that's where a lot of us get stuck. You know, it feels so uncomfortable to do something new, even if it's something good, that we sometimes don't go there. So then we have to learn how to regulate ourselves inside ourselves. I call it our inner leadership. And I have a technique I work with there. And so it just gets people all the way across to the other side so they can actually meet the goals that they've maybe held for years and just never acted on.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. The secret sauce to your program. It sounds very interesting. And I love that you bring in those different pillars. And, if you don't have strategy in place, you can't get through it. And I know a lot of people are afraid to connect with a coach because they're like, oh, I don't know if it's going to work. And, maybe they've been burned before from a program. And a lot of times they don't understand you need a specific strategy and you need to know whether that coach's strategy is going to work for you, because sometimes it won't, because it's not in alignment with what you need. And it's really important to interview your coach, just like we interview our clients to see if they're a good fit. You need your soulmate client, you need your soulmate coach.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so it's an incredible, it's very interesting. I love what you're doing. So how can people connect with you?
Well, I do run a group in Facebook called Becoming Boundless, and I do free teachings in there. We have a weekly live where I go over some topic or another, and then I have large master classes from time to time. So that would be, if you searched for, I believe that you Becoming Boundless in Facebook, you would find me, but you can just shoot me an email. And so I have my broad company, because of my positive psychology background. It's called Apropositive. It's a little, play on words. And so Kirsten at Apropositive, I'm sure we could put that in the show notes. And just send me an email. I'm really open to being contacted. And I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. Happy to. I'm on a little bit of IG, but you can definitely find me in any of those search engines and then message me, because I respond to my messages.
Awesome. That's always a good thing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and your modalities. And thank you, listeners, for being here. If you know anyone that can benefit from this interview, please share that with them. And we will put in the description the links to connect with Kirsten so that you can find her wherever your social media hangout is. And always remember, your journey is a matter of the heart.